A question Drive Research hears a lot is, how can market research help save my business money? This could be for marketing, strategy, operations, the list really goes on and on. So I decided to sit down with our president and founder, George Kuhn, as well as our research director, Chris Coville, to answer this question and more. Keep watching. If I was a prospective client and I was coming to know you, George, or you, Chris, and they asked a question, what kind of market research methodology would you recommend for me if I am trying to kind of make these strategic business decisions or these financially sound business decisions? What kind of market research methodologies could help the client make those?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would immediately jump to a customer survey, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, it's a low cost study. If you have sample customer emails, contact information on hand, it's really easy to send an online survey out to collect feedback. So there's a couple different areas that that customer survey can be used to save a business money that we talk to our clients about. Their marketing, strategy, operations. So how you would save money using a customer survey, on marketing is you might identify what channels those customers are spending time on. So if you do the survey and you find out, none of your customers are on Facebook, but the majority of them spend a lot of time on Instagram, you can instantly adjust your budget accordingly to target people on Instagram more. So from a strategy standpoint, you might find out that there's reasons people are choosing your product over competitor products. So if you understand X, Y, and Z of why your product is different, you can work some of that messaging into your strategy and some of the messaging that goes out to prospective customers to try to convert them. And then lastly, from an operations standpoint, there's also some value there in using some of the feedback from a customer survey. If they find out that they really like your customer service team for certain reasons, or there's certain frustration points in dealing with your customer service team, you can take some of that feedback directly from customers and go to your customer service team and use that as a training tool to make that experience better, increase customer retention and things like that. So that's my immediate thought for a lot of reasons. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. I think kind of going to the customer survey first has several advantages. One is that you have an accessible audience, which is going to make the research more affordable. Also going with the quantitative approach, you're going to get more reliable data results to lean on. And I do say go in the direction of quant over qual if you're going to lean on one study in particular to give you some data for decision making. Just because of quant data, it's going to be statistically reliable, whereas qual, it's good, but it can be more exploratory. It's for idea generation. So if you're going to be making decisions based off of this, definitely the customer survey is the way to go.
Yeah, I think it's something, we see or we hear time and time again. Just me personally as a marketer, don't always make assumptions about your customer and, make marketing decisions based off assumptions. So it's definitely helpful to have kind of some data to drive those strategies. And I know that, you mainly had said maybe like an online survey or an email survey. Would you guys both agree that that would probably be the most cost-effective approach to running a customer survey, or, what else could people be doing?
Yeah, I would say if the audience is accessible by email, if you have their email addresses, maybe you have a database of all your customers, that's really the best approach to go. Mail or phone, I would say, is only if, they're not accessible through an online method.
Pros and cons to all the methodologies, right? But I 100% agree. Online surveys, email surveys are the way to go. The pros far outweigh the cons. Decades ago, not a lot of people were online, using emails. That's completely changed. Everybody's doing that now. So the key pros with an online survey, like Chris said, is the low cost, right? It's one click and you can send it out to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers. It's also timely, right? So they're going to get that email and they'll respond back, and those responses come right back into your system, within hours, minutes. So you get a lot of data quickly, and the quality of data is really good too. Everybody's comfortable, with taking online surveys nowadays.
So would you say that there's any tips or suggestions that you can give someone to increase those response rates? So, they're taking the time to develop their survey questions and, drafting up the email, survey invitation, and they're kind of just seeing not as many responses that they may have hoped or may have thought. Any suggestions on how people can increase those response rates from customers?
Yeah, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, there's probably quite a few things here that we can do to increase response rates. First off, I would say is kind of being respectful of the respondent's time, keeping the survey short, keeping it quick. We really like to keep our surveys 3 to 5 minutes long, 15, 20 questions max. Making sure your survey is not just, quick to respond to, but also that it's easy to do. When you start to create very advanced questions, lots of open ends, you'll start to see more drop off in your survey. Basically, any survey that we conduct, we always see some sort of drop off on the first open-ended question that we ask in that survey. So really, we try to limit those open-ended questions. We try to limit any sort of difficult ranking question, and really try to keep the survey simple and not overuse those complicated questions that might hurt your response rate.
Yeah, it's good tips there. I think, the industry as a whole has abused the respondent relationship a little bit over the years. That's why you hear stories about, when you introduce a survey and say it's only going to take 2 minutes, and then 40 minutes later that respondent's still answering questions. When you quote the length of the survey in the email invite, there's a lot of mistrust there. So we try to be very upfront that if it is a 15-question survey, we say that in the invite. If it's a 3-minute survey, we say that in the invite. Really being respectful of that respondent's time, because in our industry, if we don't have people willing to give feedback to us and to our clients, our industry doesn't exist. So it's really important that there's a balance there between your needs and your objectives, and asking for some of that feedback from your respondents. And the other thing I'll say is incentives. It never hurts. There's going to be some people that sit on the fence who are thinking about taking a few minutes to give us feedback as part of a survey. Where a gift card, raffling off an Amazon gift card or something like that, or tokens, whatever you want to give away, it does help a little bit. So if you have a budget for that, we would always recommend doing something there to help those people sit on the fence.
So what would you say to someone if they said, okay, well, I'm trying to save marketing budget. I don't really have a huge, large marketing budget. So why would I spend even a portion of that on market research? What would kind of maybe not persuade them, but I don't know if you have any examples or something of how market research actually ended up saving people, marketing dollars or business dollars.
It's really about refining and making sure every dollar you spend is a dollar well spent. So the simple example there, it's theoretical. We talk about this all the time. There are some examples we can use too, but someone who runs a new advertising campaign for a new widget that they're launching, and they do all kinds of social ads and television commercials, programmatic ads on websites, things like that. They say, let's say they sell $1 million worth of those widgets, and they spent, say $250,000 on advertising. So they're getting a 4x return on their advertising dollar, which generated $1 million in revenue. Most ad agencies would be like, that's great. We got $4 for every dollar we spent on advertising. So they view that as a success, and let's say in that scenario, they did absolutely no research. But let's say in a, bizarro world, they also did the same thing, but they used research this time. So let's say that research uncovered that, there's a very specific type of customer who buys this widget. They're females aged 25 to 34. let's say that that female audience buys that widget because they know the shipping time is very quick if they order through your company. That's the core feature of why they're ordering through you. So in that other scenario, that's information they never knew. They targeted every single age group, both genders. They didn't include anything about the shipping, and it was still successful. But if they use the research and refine that campaign, maybe they're able to lower their marketing spend from 250,000 to 125,000. They cut it in half, but at the same time, they double the revenue from 1 million to 2 million. So that return goes from 4x to 8x. So even though you might have spent, say $25,000, $50,000 on research, your margin there is just so much greater, and the return on that advertising is so much greater.
Yeah, we always hear a lot about A/B testing once we're kind of already in the market and we're already advertising. And then once we're already advertising and spending money on these two different campaigns, we'll see which one does better. So kind of sounds like instead of maybe doing that A/B testing, it's better to spend money on some pre-testing to really, ramp up spend on the ad that's going to perform the best and offer the best ROI.
Yeah, absolutely. With an A/B test, you're also making assumptions that the A and B that you're targeting is the right targets. Mm-hmm. You might want to be doing an XY test on two completely different demographics or markets or interest buckets. The disadvantage of using some of those analytics on the back end is you're limited to what you're running. You don't know what you don't know. And that's where research can fill in those gaps and tell you, you're going left at 38 degrees, but you should really be going right at, 87 degrees.
Yeah. And, sometimes advertising and the success and impact of advertising is tough to measure. I guess another way of looking at this, so we're talking marketing dollars. Think about your website. Think about potential improvements that you can make to your website. So we've done some usability, user experience research in the past where we've worked on websites. We have one example where we worked with an e-commerce website, and they made changes based off of our usability research, and they saw a huge increase in the conversions that they were getting in terms of the orders. So that research is definitely a little bit more measurable in terms of the impact and the ROI of that research. Advertising can be a little bit more difficult just to measure the impact of the advertising campaign, but we've seen massive increases in ROI based off of the results of research being enacted.
Yeah, that e-commerce example is a good one. With analytics, the website analytics and when you're in Google Analytics, it does a really good job of telling you the what. Here's your bounce rate, here's the path people are taking to different pages, but you don't know the why. You might know, 50% of users are bouncing on this page, and you can make some assumptions and make some adjustments, which could make it worse, could make it better, you don't know. Doing even some UX interviews where you bring some customers on and talk with them as they navigate through your website and have them think out loud and ask them direct questions. Unbelievably valuable from an ROI standpoint that, even if you can lift your conversion rate on an e-commerce website by 0.5%, it could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're gaining that you were losing before.
Are there any examples that you, George, and you, Chris, have maybe outside of marketing, whether market research helped save costs in operations or things like that maybe?
Yeah, so a good example, we have for that in the operations space, let's say working with like a bank or credit union, right? So let's say they decide to do a customer survey where they want to reach out and ask about, how customers want to communicate with that bank when an issue arises. So let's say they have a call center team of 3 people and they stagger those hours over the course of the day to try to make sure that they have full coverage when customers are calling in. Let's say they do a customer survey and they find out that 95% of customers prefer email communication. And coupled with that, let's say they find out that the expectation for a response through one of those emails to the customer service team is, if you can get back to me within 24 hours, that's great. So what they would find out is, even though they're extending all these hours and adding more hours for their staff to cover those times, in reality, the top priority issues that people are just going to call in from 8:30 to 5, and they don't need to have after-hour staff for that. The customer can just send an email in, and if they can get back to them the next day, they might shave a ton of money off of costs that they're employing call center workers for.
Awesome. Well, we are wrapping up here. I don't know if either of you have some final thoughts on how market research can save businesses, whether it's budget, operation, marketing, any type of budget spend there.
Yeah, the one example that I always go back to, I talked about this earlier, but it's just people will spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on advertising, spend it on their operations, but research is really can be extremely affordable to conduct research, and spending that fixed amount on that research is going to help you improve your operations, help you improve your advertising, improve your marketing, and ultimately help you get a better ROI. Whatever you do.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sitting down with me, and I'm hoping anyone watching this caught some good tips, and if you need more, definitely visit us at driveresearch.com. Thanks for watching.